Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on touchdowns, tokens, and tactics, gamifying sports fandom to drive engagement. My name is Jackie Barba. I'm an editor for the Path to Purchase Institute, and I will be your moderator today. Before we begin, I just have a couple of housekeeping notes. We plan to try to leave time at the very end of today's webinar to answer some questions from our audience. So please feel free to use the Q&A function to ask questions over the next hour. You'll find that on the left side of your screen below the video feed. And if you want to participate in a little interactive game shortly, you can also input your answers to that when prompted. If we don't have time to answer all of the questions, we'll do our best to have someone follow up after the session concludes. You can also use that section on the bottom left if you have any technical issues, and our webinar producer will assist you. And if you want to review this discussion later or share it with your colleagues, a replay will be available within about 2 hours of our conclusion today. So you can come right back to the same page you originally registered on and listen to it again. It will remain available for 90 days. All right, that's it for housekeeping. So let me frame up our webinar today. Today's presentation will explore how brands can harness the passion and intensity of sports fans using gamification to drive engagement, loyalty, and real results. From sports bingo to real-time prediction games, our speakers will break down tactics and present real-world examples of brands turning fandom into fuel for engagement. So without further ado, our speakers today are Steve Ferber, President of Sideline Sports, and Chris Cubba, Chief Revenue Officer of Snipp Interactive. All right, Chris, I will turn things over to you to get started.
Thanks, Jackie. Good morning. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Chris. Good to see you.
Nothing like a Monday morning webinar to get the blood going.
Exactly, sir.
Well, hey, I think we've got an hour here, and we're really excited. I know I am personally to talk a little bit about sports. It's heavy sports time going on in the world. We got the NBA playoffs. My Detroit Pistons were knocked out, unfortunately, so I've been forced to become a New York Knicks fan. And I'd like all the controversy to start now with anybody watching this from the Boston area. No, I'm kidding, sort of. Let's kick into some of the content here. When we were talking to Path to Purchase and looking to identify a great subject to host this webinar, Steve, you came right to mind. The work we've been doing over the last year, I think, has been really powerful, watching what you guys are up to. And really, as Snipp has been focusing in on the sports and gamification space, there's been just, it seems like, constant changes. So I know there's a shifting paradigm slide up in front of us, which we'll talk about in a minute. But before we jump into it, for those on the webinar who maybe don't know, Jackie mentioned I'm Chris Cubba from Snipp Interactive. We have been, launching games, contests, sweepstakes, promotions for over a decade, primarily focused on the interactive and digital experience, and oftentimes with large brands, often in the CPG space, to leverage their IP, their partnerships with various teams and leagues for purposes of, building awareness for the brand, driving engagement, hopefully driving sales. And I would say in the 20 years I've been doing it, we've seen a transition from sort of passive advertising, how to leverage sports sponsorships in your branding, through now, things that are a little more interactive, bringing consumers in, using gamification principles and incentives to, ensure they're, totally vested into the brand consumer relationship. So anyway, as Snipp, there's a lot to talk about. We've been doing it for a while, but Steve, why don't you introduce yourself and Sideline Sports first, and then we'll sort of kick into the good stuff.
Sure. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's Steve Ferber with Sideline Sports. We work with pro teams and pro leagues. We're heavily invested with NFL teams as well as MLB. We also work at NBA. Chris mentioned we actually have the Knicks live. The Knicks are running one of our products. You'll see it tonight if you tune in and you go to their website in their mobile apps. So we build digital games. That's our expertise. And our whole focus is to try to get fans engaged whatever going on in the court or the field or the ice. Basically, we are connecting fans. So it's not just your loyal fan any longer rooting for your team. Now you have a stake in the game. So what's happening out there now affects you directly. And that's it. We call it live action gamification. It's also referred to as sustained engagement. So over a 3-hour period, we have fans coming back again and again to check their card. So it's giving the brands a lot of attention. It's giving the team a lot of attention. And we built in a number of marketing tools to allow both teams and brands to talk to the fans who are participating throughout the game. So that's been a real evolution of where we go with our live action gamification.
Yeah, and Steve, what I love about your platform, and again, some of the work we've been doing together, is it really drafts off of some of the trends we're seeing in the sports betting world, right? I mean, over the last 5 years, what FanDuel and DraftKings have done to the industry has been, crazy. But you guys take a different approach to it. The view on maybe more a casual fan or somebody who's not maybe looking to engage in a sports betting environment. Is that a fair statement?
Perfect. Absolutely right. They say these statistics are that 17% of a fan base are engaged or doing the sports betting. They're the avid, the super avids. What we built products quite by intention is for the casual fan. The avids play it, but we built it for the entire, to spread out that demographic. And the reason, so we've made it easy entry. For example, fantasy sports, you have to make a commitment over a long period of time. So that doesn't appeal to the casual fan or the mid-range fan. So we create a fantasy light game, one time only. You can play it today, you can win something, and tomorrow you're fine. No commitment, in and out, very, very easy. So all of our games are built with that in mind when we create it for the casual fan.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's move forward here. And when you talk about growth in the industries, I think overall, and obviously, there are measures and various sources of data and, how the growth is calculated. But in general, when we were researching for this presentation and overall, the sort of entire sports marketing, sports industry, which would be made up of tickets, merchandising, sponsorship dollars, is roughly $170 billion market. And it's growing at, just over 5%. When you look at maybe sub-segments of that, you've got fantasy sports and sports betting, which are obviously growing at a faster clip, but a smaller, portion of the total dollars. Again, I think for purposes of brands and those watching this webinar, there's a real opportunity, I think, to, if you have IP, if you have partnerships with sports leagues or teams, whether the sort of big four or some of the more fringe sports, there are opportunities to tap into that growth and really drive excitement in ways that, like you said, replicate perhaps fantasy sports and sports betting without necessarily going in or being all that. So just to set the stage, it's a big market. It's still a growing market. What we saw on the last slide was it's transitioning from maybe this passive advertising environment to something a little more interactive. And, obviously, brands like Sideline and your clients, as well as Snipp and our clients are working to, grow that together. At the same time, this idea of gamification and gamification principles is rising. Do you want to hit on some of these slides, some of these points, Steve, and then we'll move in?
Sure. We have 72% up there. Yeah, basically, we went into the market just to look at the stats for a moment. 72%, that's the number. It was the Deloitte study found in 2023. 72% of major consumer brands have integrated at least one gamification product in the sports activation market. 2 years ago, that number was 48%. That speaks directly to the amount of growth that's taken place. 37%, that's what McKinsey's report said, that brands using gamification elements for sporting events saw a 37% higher engagement rate compared with traditional ads or advertising approaches. 31%, that's what Nielsen sports data revealed. It said that brand recall increased by 31% when consumers engage with sports content versus passive viewing. And the last one, 24%, that came from a case study by Harvard Business Review. They found that gamification strategies produced an average of a 24% increase in time spent engaging with brand content. So we're seeing basically that trend, as Chris mentioned before. It's a very, very steady climb to the top as gamification is taking off. You're going to see in a moment that there's a very broad range of what gamification includes. We're sort of at the outer end, but there's multiple opportunities throughout on it. And Chris will share those momentarily.
Yeah. Before I go to the next slide, just put you on the spot, Steve. What do you think's driving the increase in the number of brands, maybe integrating gamification elements? It's a huge change. Yeah, I think you said from 40% up to 72.
48 to 72, yeah. I mean, basically, we're talking about the younger audiences. The number of people that are basically living on their phones, the need to do more, the need to do that they're not paying. Again, we have the cable. Basically, we're breaking away from cable on it. All these different strategies is moving people away from traditional ads on it. So they're looking to diversify. And that's what we hear, actually. What we hear from the teams is that somebody in partnerships will come to and say, hey, I've got a brand. They're looking for something interactive, something immersive. What do you have? And that is the conversation we're hearing more and more take place. But I think it's a diversification, trying to appeal to younger audiences who they know they're going to need over time. Yeah.
And I guess if I'm a brand, it's what am I going to do to differentiate my sponsorship dollars, my exposure? Obviously, maybe my name is on the stadium. SoFi, I think, spent $400 million on a stadium sponsorship along with other rights. What my name's on the jersey. What else am I going to do, though, to engage a consumer in those dollars spent to make sure they have a good immersive interaction with my brand, and the event that they're naturally just sports are natural, wire people differently to be competitive and care and obviously voice themselves. So yeah, really interesting. Going on to the next slide, let's talk about let's take a step back and maybe illustrate what is gamification. And so Jackie, you're back with us. Jackie has so kindly volunteered to be our victim. Is that right, Jackie? Contestant to illustrate what is gamification, right? So we started this, we talked about sports, maybe the growth of sports and some of the changes in sports marketing. Obviously, Steve went into gamification and how that's building both in and outside of the sports marketing world. But to take a step back, in Chris Cubba world, super simple, what is gamification? And without reading what's on the screen, in my mind, gamification is simply using the mechanics or principles of games to elicit a behavior change that a consumer might not have otherwise done or completed. So, and what's on the screen is essentially employing the use of game principles in non-game context to tap into fundamental human desires or challenges, competition achievements, and recognition to educate, change behavior, and inspire action. So that was said twice. Steve, would you add a third definition in there of what you would call gamification? Oh, I think you're muted, Steve.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, it's enormously broad, the gamification itself. We were approached by the Atlanta Hawks years ago, and they said we train our interns to learn about the stadium. And what they said, we'd like to gamify that process on it. So again, that's how broad it can be. So it can be applied across the board to any activity, technically. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. That's why there are so many options that are out there.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's illustrate some of the ideals behind gamification and maybe what it could elicit. So Jackie, thanks again for volunteering. Hopefully you've had time to study that word search box. All your answers are there. And the first question in this trivia game is, what NFL team won the first Super Bowl? Are you a football fan, Jackie? Did you grow up in the Midwest, maybe?
I grew up in the Midwest. Yes, I did. And I shouldn't know this answer, but Lombardi is a family name for my Italian ancestors. So I want to say the Green Bay Packers. So, yeah.
That is the correct answer. Well done. Well done. Now, Jack, you answered that question because you're sitting in a webinar and we're forcing you to participate. But the hope is that, it was fun, right? You had a little bit of fun. You engaged a little more in this conversation. We had a reason to bring you into it. And so the next question is, or a form of gamification would be maybe urgency, right? Time-based sensitivities, including maybe a stopwatch into the equation. And that behavior might elicit a slightly different feeling, which we'll do. And I wish the webinar had I could put 5 seconds on the clock, but I'm not going to do that to you. So when we ask the second question, the goal here would be to just answer it as quick as you can, maybe 5 seconds or less, which is who holds the NBA record for the most points scored in a career?
I'm going to just say LeBron James.
Is that right, Steve? Is it LeBron James?
It is. He's got it.
Well, as I said earlier, as a Detroit Pistons fan, I probably would have said Isaiah Thomas or Chauncey Billups. But yeah, that's the right answer. So I don't know if this is true, and not to put words in your mouth, Jackie, but you may have felt your blood pressure spike a little bit. There may have been some sensitivity to the feeling of urgency that you had to get it right in order to get the credit in a certain period of time. And so that, might elicit a different behavior altogether. Let's move along. Let's keep with the tone. You got to answer in 5 seconds still. But this time, I'm going to tell you, if you get it right, I'm going to send you a $5 gift card to, I don't know, what's a good example? Fanatics. I don't know. Can I use their brand in this webinar? Unlicensed. If not, we'll just, beep that part out for the recording. So which pitcher has the most wins in MLB history? And you've got 3 seconds.
My dad, and I don't know.
All right, we're going to call your dad and tell him that you don't know. So you don't get the prize. And so, you'll have to make it up some other way. The answer was Cy Young. And so that's okay. We'll give you another chance. But there's an incentive involved. So maybe, and again, this is just me forcing my opinions here. When you bring an incentive into the equation, it brings maybe a slightly more elevated cause for concern or care, right? I really want to get this right now, not only because it's fun and, it feels a little more urgent, but there's something actually on the line. And so that is a reason where incentives are really important. All right, so let's do, I think there's 2 more questions. For this next one, I'm going to take a risk here because it's Monday morning and I don't even know how many people are on this event live. Is there an issue with my microphone? Are you guys hearing a problem? Sorry, I was getting a note from the producers. Is there feedback coming in? Can you guys tell?
It sounds good now.
Yeah, it sounds fine here, Chris.
All right. Otherwise, Steve, you're going to have to carry the whole rest of this conversation. Okay, so the next one is we're going to give you some help. Jackie, maybe you don't need it. I'm going to make it, instead of 5 seconds, let's give you 10. And anybody who's listening to the webinar, in the Q&A chat window, I think is where we're going to do it. Help Jackie out. Give her a guess. If she's going to disappoint her dad again, we don't want that to happen. Feel free to help. So, Jackie, who won the last FIFA World Cup? And no using ChatGPT to help you.
No, I need some help with this one, guys, please.
All right.
Put it in the Q&A chat.
Yeah, where can people help you with this, Jack? Where should they go? They're going to need this when they submit questions later too.
You go to the Q&A section on the left-hand side. And I would love some assistance on this one because I have no idea.
All right. Oh, we've got one answer in here. All right, you know what? I'm still hearing this feedback. Give me 1 second here.
I think Rachel has helped us out here, Jackie.
I was gonna say I think I'm gonna go with one of the answers that came in, Argentina, and I hope that's correct.
Is that right? Steve, is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So listen, I don't know who Rachel is, but thank goodness for Rachel, Jackie. She saved you. And what she also did was she illustrated the importance of gamification, engaging an audience, right? Like Rachel probably wouldn't have maybe raised her hand or voiced an opinion or said anything, or perhaps was starting to doze off at the sound of my monotone voice. And so bringing an audience in, getting them into the game is a way of encouraging it. Now, Rachel was the only person to participate in that question. So on this last question, we're going to bring it all together. And Jackie, for you, I'm going to give a $20 gift card to any retailer of your choice, at least one that's part of the Snipp Rewards network, which is a collection of over 4,000 digital gift cards available in our portal. See the plug I just did for Snipp. And the first 5 people who give you an answer, the correct answer, we'll give them a gift card to, assuming I know who they are at the end of this thing, and we can send them an email. So the last question, it's probably the hardest, so no pressure, is who scored a record 10 hat tricks in one NHL season? There's 10 seconds on the clock. Jackie, I hope you're a hockey fan. And for anybody else maybe participating, this is your chance to win a gift card, maybe a Visa gift card, maybe a Fanatics gift card, maybe a Starbucks gift card. We'll figure it out at the end of this thing. But if you give Jackie some help, there will just be money flowing to everybody. And I think along the way, I've fixed my microphone.
Yep.
All right, Melissa, Lori, Bria, look at all these answers. That's 3 right away.
That's right. 3 for 3.
Cards for everybody.
Wow.
Let's
4 for 4.
Karan.
Yeah. We're on a run.
All right, that's 4. One more, maybe.
That's it.
All right, Jackie. I don't know if you can see the answers. You're going to take, it seems unanimous.
Wayne Gretzky.
Wayne Gretzky.
The great one.
Right.
The great one. The GOAT, according to Melissa. That's right. That's right. Wayne Gretzky. And again, I probably would have said Steve Yzerman again from Detroit, but I guess Wayne Gretzky is sort of a big deal. So Jackie, thank you so much for volunteering to participate. The last step there was obviously talking about group incentivizations, right? So you were incentivized. It got you to maybe care a little bit more. We showed it at the end, and then, because people cared about you, you got a little bit of help. But as soon as we said, hey, the world around us, you can care about yourself, there's something in it for you. We saw a lot more participation of people who were, not only interested in seeing you get the right answer, but also interested in some selfish motivations, which is getting a gift card. So anyway, for everyone who participated, we're going to send a gift card. You helped prove a point, which was the biggest risk of the day. Had nobody responded, I would have been very sad. And we thank you for that. So this is one example of a game, right? And it's sports related because we made it around sports trivia. But there are lots of ways of thinking about specific types of tactics and mapping them back to behavioral changes, or leveraging what motivates people behaviorally, and then how to sort of represent that with the mechanic. So when we talk about it at Snipp, we talk about motivating consumers through status and recognition, right? A principle in behavioral psychology, which is give me a reason to sort of be recognized, get the gold star, win an award, be the best, and, I'll be more likely to participate. There's personalization and identity achievements, right? Like help me feel like through gamification, this experience can be more personalized, or I can feel an identity match to the subject at hand. There's leveraging motivation and momentum. So, hey, how quickly can you answer those questions? How many can you get right in a row? How can we motivate you to participate? And that could be, through things like punch cards, which you'll see, or streaks and progression type gaming. There's social mechanics, right? How do I engage the audience around me, my friends, my family? How can I create behaviors that people want to share out through maybe prediction games where I'm predicting the best, but you're going to play along too? Obviously, fantasy sports uses a lot of the social mechanics. And then scarcity and exclusivity. I think this is the easiest one and probably the one that most brands use today, especially in the CPG space, leveraging sports sponsorships. Instant win games, right? Hey, enter for your chance to win one of 1,000 prizes. And maybe there's only 1,000, but you've got to come in and you've got to play and you've got to play along. And it's, you have a chance to win. So anyway, there are a lot of ways in which these 5 categories, again, sort of personify themselves through tactics like on the right side badging and trivia and time limiting and pick 'em games. So, we work with clients day in and day out to do that. And then the reasons why we use gamification, right? And they're diverse here as brands, is to build awareness, right? To drive engagement. Again, like we talked about earlier, Steve, how do you maybe get consumers to engage in ways they wouldn't otherwise have engaged before? To create differentiation. There's lots of brands maybe who are sponsoring the same sport or the same team or league or player. And so if you're a brand and you're trying to figure out how to differentiate or pull your sponsorship to the top, you can. Again, there's education, there's conversion, there's opportunities to use gamification in the broader loyalty context, bringing people through a multi-touch point experience, maybe sometimes purchase-based and a simple transactional-based thing, other times in a fun, interactive, immersive type of game like we just illustrated. And I'm curious, for those of you on the webinar, what gamified elements have you either used maybe or participated in as a consumer, or as if you're a brand manager or a vendor in the place, a marketer, what types of gamified elements have you used or maybe are considering to use today? And we'll give this maybe 30 seconds. Hopefully there's a poll showing on everyone's screen, which you should be able to press A, B, C, D, or E. And Steve, while people answer, anything you would add to what I've said so far?
Yeah, I think some of the key elements, no question, is scarcity. One of the questions we get often from the team and the brands is, can we control the number of winners? Basically, that is one huge piece. The other is data collection. Is basically, this is a way to get connected and get the data so that they can use it for future marketing, that type of thing on it. And so engagement is the center point. Let's face it. What it does is gamification engages the brain in a different way. Watching a sporting activity is generally a passive activity on it. And anytime you inject that, you're now forcing somebody to think. You, of course, used duration before with 5 seconds on the clock. That does get the blood working more quickly and gets the brain firing. So all of those things are heightening the engagement moment. And that's the essence, really, of it. So I think that's a center. Engagement, data collection on, and scarcity seems to be the 3 elements that we hear about a lot of what teams and brands are looking for.
Yeah. Yep. I would agree. Okay. I think we've got some survey results in. You know what? I'm I got to tell you, a little surprised to see. We had some hypotheses around maybe what would be most popular versus not. So if we can send the results to the audience, let's see. I think they're maybe displaying. I can't see the screen on here, but the most popular answer was actually a tie between spin to win and instant win prizes. Oh, actually, no, this is pretty much what I predicted it would be. It changed here with the last people who participated. So spin to win and trivia quizzes are the most popular tactic being used today. And the followed by, sorry, I'm having to flip back and forth between screens, followed by social media-based competitions, AR, VR-based experiences, and then fantasy sports or prediction games. And I would say that checks with about what I would have expected. To date, most brands using gamification or gamification in combination with sports are doing it in ways which we would call anytime play examples, right? Come to the site. Maybe you saw my advertising. I'm leveraging the IP from my sports sponsorship. Come to the site and play the game. Spin the wheel. Take a trivia, answer a trivia game, answer a poll, and that's great. And I think there's a lot that can be accomplished from it. Where there's a lot of growth, and I think in the same vein as what we're talking about in growth within the sports and gamification market, is live action examples, which it seems like from the results of this poll, fewest people have participated in live action gamification, fantasy integrated, live event type engagements. And so what I thought would be a good way to close out this webinar is to just sort of illustrate through a case studies some examples of simple, what we again would call anytime play programs, and Steve, closer to your heart, live action programs. So,
well, Chris, we've also had a question already talking about how to use this to drive retail point of sale activation. So I'll get to that once as we move forward. I'll address that directly.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's do that. And I think even in some of these case studies, hopefully that'll come to life. So let me see. Are you seeing Duracell and Williams Racing?
Yes, sir.
I think they are. Okay. So this is a just perfect example of a brand that obviously has a partnership with Williams Racing around F1, where they launched a gamified F1 inspired experience to engage the Williams Racing's fans and extend their brand interaction beyond maybe just a traditional advertising, awareness or exposure type method. This was a purchase-based game. Consumers who bought Duracell batteries essentially could submit their receipt to unlock access to custom-built online games. There's 4 of them featured here in the middle. I'm sorry, there's 4 featured, but the game itself had 6 different reaction-based mini games. One of them was a sort of a speed starting light reflex test, a battery drop timing challenge, a rapid tile selection puzzle game, all essentially designed to mimic the speed, precision, and quick decision-making of Formula One racing. Players competed on a live leaderboard. There were top performers winning exclusive F1 prizes. They had race tickets, pit passes, meet and greets with Williams drivers. And by merging gaming, competition, purchase-based incentives, Duracell was able to sort of deepen the consumer engagement, build stronger brand connections, and then, deliver a measurable participation and outcome. So again, this is a really, really good example of a brand that built a sports-inspired anytime play promotion that, again, purpose was to drive sales and interact with an environment that they knew their customers were passionate about. Similarly, or maybe different, but similarly in the live action example, Coca-Cola, Zero Sugar, and EA Sports have come together for Football 25, partnering with EA on the college football season as the exclusive CPG sponsor. For this experience, fans could visit a microsite to scan their Coke Zero product, unlock rewards. In real life, students at 14 partner campuses got to experience the fan work with a Thirsty Work tour. As part of the college tour, students and fans could play EA Sports college football for free and create their own custom Coca-Cola Zero Sugar and EA Sports College Ultimate fan cards. The tour made stops at various pro football tailgates throughout the season. But again, the takeaway here is Coca-Cola, obviously through this sort of immersive scan to participate, engaging with maybe in this way, this example, a real, gamification and game in this case. Experience could ultimately engage consumers and give them prizes and get them to participate using some of these principles. And then lastly, again, these are just examples that I've seen in the marketplace. Captain Morgan, follow the Captain scavenger hunt. They created a scavenger hunt for the second year this year where the campaign invited fans to find brand icons and QR codes hidden at bars, liquor stores, stadiums, and on social to earn prizes. They could get the party started. Captain Morgan teamed up with the NFL and hosted Sailgate, not Tailgate, Steve, programs aboard ships in the New York City Hudson River. And ultimately, attendees were able to enjoy craft cocktails, waterside views, onboard challenges to unlock more surprises, and a performance from a major music artist. So again, I look at this, and again, I think Captain Morgan and their agency team there through the scavenger hunt leveraged a lot of the same gamification principles we talked about early on, obviously in support of their sports sponsorship with the NFL, to create a really immersive way for consumers to participate. To answer, I'll take one crack at answering the question around how consumers can use this to motivate retailer relationships. Is with any of these, obviously getting the retailer excited about it, showcasing the way in which this is going to differentiate and come to life at the shelf. Maybe in this case, giving consumers a place to go in store as one of the scavenger hunt options, to unlock a QR code at shelf, or some other way. Yeah, obviously, in the Duracell and Williams Racing example, they had in-store signage up everywhere. Again, getting consumers to break through the clutter and participate. So to me, those were three examples, Steve, of just what I would call maybe traditional gamification-based approaches that leverage some of what we're talking about in partnership with sports. But I think where the fun really starts is in these next case studies, where you can add live action fuel to the same principles to create an even more exhilarating experience for consumers.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I'll walk through this. Go ahead. You can advance for. Yeah, there we go. We'll start. This is an activation by the Baltimore Ravens, 7 years and running. What's interesting is this began when the Ravens called us 3 weeks into the season, said, we have some gamification that's just not doing well. How soon can you activate? So I asked the critical question, who's your developer? They told us. This was on a Monday. I said, no problem. We can activate this Sunday. That's how quickly we were set up to go. He called me, of course, on a Wednesday and said, we're not ready. So we activated the next week, and that was 7 years ago. Papa John's has been with them for all 7 years. So our products are built, again, for the casual fan. We've added some built-in marketing, which I'll talk to in a moment. But they offer a brand anywhere from 7 to 12 different places that they can live throughout the activity. Again, the way I'll highlight, we have a number of games, but I'm going to highlight just one of them called Sports Bingo. And we do it actually, if you wanted to see bingo in action, you could go to MLB app and play any game every day. We're doing all 2,430 MLB games. And of course, tonight for Chris's Knicks, you could go on there and play Knicks Bingo. So the essence here, again, is to provide as much attention for the brand during the game as we can. And of course, events are checking off automatically. It's a passive activity for the fan. as things mature. The next slide will show us a touch more about pizza. This is the Detroit Lions working with Little Caesars. And here we have the ability to auto-generate one-time use or single-use coupons to winning fans. The team and the brand set the cap so they don't have to worry about getting overrun on it. And on the right answers that question about how do we drive folks to retail. Here's what we did. Cincinnati Reds work with Dunkin'. And Dunkin' said, all right, we want to drive people into the store, and we know to both introduce them, get them there, obviously, to introduce them to the more broader range of products that they now offer. So they sent us codes. We put them on the back end, thousands and thousands. I think from the Lions, we got 25,000 codes and distributed maybe 1,500 per week, that type of thing. Very, very simple, very straightforward. For Dunkin', they set a cap. And anybody that got the barcode, they can walk into a Dunkin', scan it, and they get a free coffee. This was extremely successful, but it's a perfect way, again, to drive traffic into retail.
Us Lions fans love our pizza, Steve.
Yeah, there you go. A lot of pizza. All right, next one is Coca-Cola working with the Tampa Bay Bucks. And this was more of a straight brand play. I'll talk about the live feed, and you'll see that in a number of the places. What happened with the live feed was the live feed served two purposes. All the events that are on your card were here, the events themselves checking off. But there's also a place to add a message, again, in-game to fans, with usually a link that goes out to their site, and to sell merchandise, ticket, what have you, team tickets, obviously brand merchandise, and other resources, other services. But here we added in, when we did the Super Bowl for the NFL, what they said was, could we give more attention to the brand? So we added something called featured messages. So you can see up top there in the live feed, two different messages that a fan is seeing each time they visit the live feed to see how they're doing. And on average, a fan returns to their card 7.2 times. But we just did a pilot for the PWHL, a one-off last week of the last regular season game. They had 12.4 was the number of times the fan returned on average to the card. So they're getting a lot of attention and a lot of visibility. That's sort of the key idea here. Next slide. Next slide is about T-Mobile trying to get a younger audience. That's what they're really doing here. And everything's going on here. On the left, of course, is the game card. Right below, it's the first win pattern for them to click and win. But the middle is the key. The featured messages are up top. Some 3 events you can see, and then you see a T-Mobile message nestled in there. A brand can send any number of messages throughout the game. So we see generally a mix of team and brand that is rolled through this rolling live feed. But those 2 featured messages, they stay up top throughout. And of course, on the right, again, another single-use coupon to drive activity to the site.
Yeah. I love this next example. But Bingo's amazing. I think it's by far the most well understood game just in general. But go ahead, Steve. Sorry to cut you in.
Yeah, no, I was going to say on this one, this is the Milwaukee Brewers we've worked with for, I think we're in year 9 now. And what was interesting here is that US Cellular has a relationship with them. And they saw Bingo and they had some other assets they were working with. And they asked them, can we switch over? So that was 3 years ago. US Cellular came in and said, we see the attention. They run it for all 162, home and away. It's a nice way for a team and brand, actually, to stay in touch on the road games. Traditionally, most of that marketing is done in stadium and game. But this is when they're on the road for the 81 games. They can also play and, of course, get some exposure. Team can sell tickets. Brand can get some attention. These are our other games that we have. Again, Bingo on the left, you see Kroger's there as the sponsor. Again, that message you see below the card lives there for 15 seconds whenever a fan comes to visit. So that is always seen when a fan comes back to the card. And again, any messaging can go throughout. The middle game is called Pick 3. Most people refer to it as Fantasy Light. That's what I referenced before. A fan can come in, just play today, and basically move on. There's no commitment over a period of time as there is in traditional fantasy. So that's the essence of helping out the casual fan. On the right is a pick'em game. We had a more complicated version, and we, after doing the survey results, realized we need something more casual, more quick, more support for the casual fan. We've added images. We've told them how many other fans have selected those. All of these, of course, fully automated for the big leagues.
Yeah. So, Steve, before we go on, there's a couple of questions. I know one you already mentioned that you were going to come back to. So, how does gamification translate to point of sale / in-store activation? I think Yasmin submitted this question. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. Flip back if you can to 17 or 16. That is the Duncan example, and that we've seen more and more on it. There you go. Yeah, this is the essence of it. Basically, what they're doing is, as soon as a fan earns one of the 3 win patterns in the game, they automatically get a winner message. This is a winner message. We never use the L word, the loser. We always have a winner and a non-winner message. So the number of, if they want to go out to 1,000 people to drive some traffic, they can do that. They can expand it to the entire fan base, whoever is playing it is ever earning it. But this is the essence of it. And this is the example we see used over and over again in different realms. The ability, all of our products can deliver single-use coupons, which can be redeemed online, obviously. The lotteries do that a fair amount, but it can be, obviously, in this case, you've got to go in to get the free coffee.
Yeah. I'm also going to ask this. So Melissa asked, MLB Bingo, would that be in the MLB app or the Ballpark app? And I feel like Melissa might be multitasking and looking to participate in the program right now. So where do you find that program?
Well, the answer is both. I mean, the games are referring to MLB headquarters has Bingo as one of their games in the MLB app. There's a icon on top right, a play icon that you press to get into all the games. And Bingo is listed there, and when one taps it, every game going on today is active. In the Ballpark app, we have 6 MLB teams currently running our products. We have 3 teams. It's the Rangers and the White Sox and the Twins. They are running all 3 of these games that Chris has up on the slide. So there are 6 different teams that are running our products in the MLB Ballpark app, and then headquarters in the MLB app.
Yeah. And Anthony asked a question, it says, my brand doesn't have a relationship with any of the leagues or teams. Do you handle approvals from them if I run a program with you? And
we have been approached by, sorry, Chris. Sorry.
Go ahead, sorry. I'm getting feedback.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've been approached by brands who basically said, these are the markets we'd like to be in. We have relationships with pretty much all teams. I mean, Chris mentioned before the big 4. We've also in touch with MLS folks as well. But we have a very strong reach. So if somebody identified markets, we had Verizon do that recently. These are the places we want to beat for, basically, they're trying to get people back that they've lost to AT&T or T-Mobile, and they've identified markets that we can go to. But we can approach a team and help navigate that. Yeah.
Steve, have you guys done anything with pickleball or slap fighting or maybe wingsuit, flying, roller derby, any other fringe sports?
You know, it's funny you say that. You know, we looked at the number of games. We've activated for 16 different sports, and none of them were, you mentioned, we haven't gotten there yet. Pickleball is a natural because it's very similar, obviously, to tennis in terms of its basics and the key elements on it. We have done golf. We did the U.S. Open. And in fact, PGA is looking at doing the championship with us in actually using 2 of our games. They want to basically, it's interesting. The initial concept was to have people make a prediction before and then watch the 3 tournaments. But we told them when we got in conversation, they really wanted something daily. Because a lot of times it's sort of like March Madness. You make a guess and then you hope your bracket does well, but you're not guessing repeatedly. So we created a structure where they would pick something anew each day on it. And that's what we're in conversation with right at the moment.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Okay. I know we're coming up on time here. We've got about 11 minutes left. I know there have been questions throughout, which is good. Do you want to sort of hit this slide here from Mike and add some context, and then I can close this out on the last 2?
Sure. Yeah. Opportunity again to grow. You can see it, to grow sports over the next decade. It's going to come down to how the industry serves these fans. That's the thing. We hear continuous pressure that the team is failing to stand out, not just among other sports, but with other activities. So it's a constant message that the team is delivering to us. What else can we do here? And how can we get, again, the key term for us is sustained engagement, because that creates acute branding, which is a little different.
Yeah. And I think from the teams, that's so true. And I think brands are also dealing with how do we better serve our customers? How do we create this bridge? And how do we create an experience that is good for us, our consumers, you know, and everyone in that user journey? Well, great. I think I'll close us out here. And I'm hearing microphone feedback again. So hopefully the echo is not awful. But when we talk about best practices, at least within the Snipp organization, Steve, and I would assume at Sideline as well, we always start with what are our goals and objectives, working with the client to figure out what those ought to be, identifying the behaviors we're looking to change and what mechanisms might be the right way to do it. Every example I think we showed today, and in general, gamification requires a great, compelling experience and a meaningful incentive. And so that comes down to the brand knowing who their customer is, maybe what their unmet needs are, how you can, if, a Starbucks gift card is motivating, or if it's cash or coupons or tickets or jerseys or, gear. There's a lot there that is important to understand. Obviously, promoting and amplifying it, going back to the question earlier, leveraging, again, in the CPG or shopper space, retail media networks, leveraging those partnerships to get the word out, to encourage consumers to participate, at least initially, and then building really good CRM systems or messaging matrices that continue to reinforce and bring consumers back in over time. The good news is it's easier than any other form of advertising to convince consumers to come back because, again, gamification principles at work here, incentives that are encouraging them to maybe care a little bit more than they would otherwise. And then from our standpoint, it's making sure you have a really powerful engine on the back end to collect that first party data, to track those behavior changes, to measure success. I was just at a Path to Purchase conference earlier this week where the majority of the sessions I sat in were really all around measurement. And again, in that context, it was about retail media measurement and whether it's ROAS or iROAS or incrementality or, the triple M is back and people are looking at, obviously, media mix measurement. So I would say with any of these programs, it's also really important to understand and track the behaviors and see if we're driving the behaviors that we want, which I know I've seen with some of these Sideline things. And then, of course, learn, optimize, repeat. Steve, you and I have talked plenty of times. It's crawl, walk, run, start small, test in the local market, and then before you know it, go national and maybe build something with everyone. So I'll close on that. Again, for anybody sort of watching along, there's a ton of examples I think myself or our team here at Snipp can bring to the table. Steve and the team at Sideline, when you're interested in the sort of live action examples, bringing our two platforms together is something we're actively, working on to create a really good integrated experience for our customers. But that's sort of the end of the webinar. We'll leave it open for questions. If anyone wants to download this presentation, or presentation, which it looks like I have a typo on, you're welcome to do it from this QR code. We'll also email it out to people, and we can share any of the sources. We can share any of the sources and other information that you may have seen early on in the slide. So I'll sort of pause there. Jackie, I don't know if you want to come back in. If there are other questions we haven't hit yet, happy to hit those and go from there.
Yeah, thank you guys both so much for sharing all of those great examples and insights. I think you handled all of the questions that came in, and I think we're almost at about time. So I will go ahead and close out. Thank you both so much again. Before I do close out today, I just wanted to note another upcoming P2PI event. We are so excited to host our very first in-store marketing forum this August in Chicago. The 2-day boutique event will take place August 19th and 20th and focus on quality connections, personalized learning, and hands-on insights. So you can visit our website for more information now and secure your ticket. Okay, that's it. I'd like to again thank our speakers, Chris and Steve, for sharing their valuable time and industry knowledge with us today. If we weren't able to get to all your questions, we'll try to have someone follow up with you after the webinar. I also want to give a big thanks to all of you, our attendees, for devoting some of your time to be with us today as well. We hope that you found it worthwhile. Please make sure to take the satisfaction survey and let us know what topics you would like to hear us feature in the future. And just a reminder that this webinar will be available to rewatch on demand in about 2 hours, so you can listen to it again if there are things that you want to check back on, or you can share the learnings with your colleagues. You can come right back to the same page you originally registered on and listen to it again, and it will be available for 90 days. Okay, that covers everything. Please have a wonderful day, and we hope to see you back here again very soon.